The morning sun was just rising over the Pacific Ocean when the first ships appeared. Admiral Jake Morrison had been drinking his coffee on the bridge of the USS Defiance when the warning lights started flashing red. His communication officer, Lieutenant Danny Walsh, turned to him with wide eyes. "We have contacts. Massive contacts coming out of hyperspace." Jake set down his coffee and walked to the main display screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. 3,000 ships were materializing in space, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. The vessels were made of some kind of crystal material that caught the light from Earth's sun and threw it back in rainbow patterns. "Get me Earth Command," Jake ordered. Priority 1. Captain Lisa Davis was in the communications center when the alien message came through. The transmission was in perfect English, which surprised everyone in the room. The voice was cold and emotionless, like a machine speaking. "People of Earth," the voice said, "we are the Zephyrian Collective. We have come to claim your world for our own use. You have 72 hours to evacuate your planet. Any who remain will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." Lisa felt her hands shake as she recorded the message. She had trained for this moment her whole life, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of it. The aliens weren't interested in talking. They weren't interested in peace. They wanted Earth, and they were willing to kill everyone on it to get it. "Send this to General Collins immediately," she told her assistant. "Full priority." In the research labs beneath the Pentagon, Dr. Amy Watson was already working. She had been studying the alien ships through the telescope arrays, trying to understand. Their technology, which she saw, worried her more than anything else. "Their shields are incredible," she told her team. "I'm reading energy signatures that are off the charts. Their weapons appear to be some kind of plasma-based system, far beyond anything we have." Commander Ryan Kelly was looking at the tactical data on his screen. The alien fleet was arranged in a perfect formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller vessels forming protective rings around them. It was the formation of a species that had done this many times before. "They're not just here to invade," he said to his staff. "They're here to colonize. This is a full-scale occupation force." Ryan had studied military history his whole life. He knew what happened when a technologically superior force met a weaker one. The results were always the same. The weaker side was crushed, enslaved, or destroyed. Looking at the alien fleet, he couldn't see how humanity could possibly win. But Ryan didn't know about Project Prometheus. Deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, General Peter Collins was activating systems that had been hidden for decades. The mountain was more than just a military base. It was the heart of humanity's greatest secret. For 100 years, ever since the first UFO crashes, humans had been preparing for this day. "Begin activation sequence," Peter ordered. "Stations, prepare for Code Black." Around the world, military bases were receiving the same message. In Japan, Colonel Martin Reed was opening sealed orders that his grandfather had left him. In Germany, Major Susan Clark was descending into bunkers that most people didn't know existed. In Australia, Captain Joe Martinez was activating weapons that had never been tested in combat. The aliens had no idea what they were facing. On the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Veltar was reviewing the data about Earth. His species had conquered 47 worlds, and each one had fallen within days of their arrival. The humans looked no different from any other primitive species they had encountered. "Their technology is crude," his science officer reported. "Nuclear weapons, chemical, rockets, electromagnetic communications. They are at least 500 years behind us in development," Veltar nodded. "Begin the standard colonization protocol. Land forces in their major population centers. Destroy any resistance. Process the survivors for relocation." The Supreme Commander had no way of knowing that humanity had been watching his species for decades. Every time the Zephyrians conquered a world, human intelligence agents had been there, studying their methods, learning their weaknesses, preparing for the day when they would come to Earth. Back on Earth, millions of people were watching the news reports. The alien fleet was clearly visible in the sky now, a dark shadow that blocked out the stars. In New York, store owner Bill Thompson was closing his shop early and heading home to his family. In Los Angeles, Teacher Karen Miller was trying to explain to her students why they were being sent home from school. "Are the aliens going to hurt us?" asked one little girl. Karen knelt down to the child's level. "I don't know, sweetie. But there are good people working very hard to keep us safe." If only she knew how right she was in the hidden command center. Dr. Helen Morris was making final adjustments to equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The devices were called psionic amplifiers, and they were designed to do something that no alien species had ever encountered before. "Testing complete," she reported. "The amplifiers are ready for deployment." "Good," replied General Collins. "What about the quantum disruptors?" "Dr. Coleman's team says they'll be ready in 18 hours, Helen answered. "The gravitational mines are already in position throughout the solar system." Peter smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "Then, we're ready to give these invaders a surprise they'll never forget." The alien landing ships began their descent toward Earth's major cities. Each ship carried 1,000 Zephyrian warriors equipped with plasma weapons and energy shields that could stop any projectile that humans could fire at them. They had conquered dozens of worlds with these same forces. As the ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their sensors detected something strange. The major cities appeared to be empty. There were no crowds of panicking people in the streets. No military forces rushing to defend key positions. It's just empty roads and quiet buildings. "Something is wrong," reported the landing force commander to Veltar. "The cities are deserted." "Perhaps they are hiding," the supreme commander replied. "It matters not. Begin the occupation. Secure all strategic locations." The first alien troops touched down in Times Square at exactly noon. They expected to find thousands of humans cowering in fear. Instead, they found empty streets and an eerie silence that seemed to press in on them from all sides. Similar scenes were playing out in London, Tokyo, Berlin, and every other major city on Earth. The aliens had come expecting to conquer a panicked, disorganized species. Instead, they found a world that seemed to be waiting for them in his command center. Admiral Morrison watched the alien deployments on his tactical display. Every landing site was being monitored. Every alien movement was being tracked. Invaders thought they were in control, but they were actually walking into the largest trap in human history. "All units report ready," announced Captain Davis. "We're just waiting for your order, sir." Jake looked at the display one more time. The alien fleet was in position. Their ground forces were deployed. Everything was exactly where humanity needed it to be. "Not yet," he said quietly. "Let them get comfortable first. Let them think they've won." The Zephyrians had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. They had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior firepower. What they didn't have was an understanding of human nature. They didn't know that humans were the kind of species that would spend a century preparing for a war that might never come. They were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The sun was setting over the empty cities when the first phase of the alien occupation was declared complete. In just a few hours, the human race would begin to show these invaders what true warfare looked like. Captain Nicole Brooks stepped onto the alien flagship with her diplomatic team. The transport beam had been cold and uncomfortable, leaving her feeling dizzy and sick. But she had a job to do, and the fate of humanity might depend on how well she did it. The inside of the Zephyrian ship was nothing like she had expected. The walls were made of the same crystal material as the hull, but they glowed with a soft blue light. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. Nicole had to remind herself to stay calm and focused. She whispered to Lieutenant Carl Johnson, who was walking beside her. "We're here to buy time, not to actually surrender. Keep your eyes open and record everything you see." Carl nodded and adjusted the hidden camera in his uniform. The device was so small that the aliens would never notice it, but it would capture everything they needed to know about the enemy ship's layout and technology. The Zephyrian escort led them through long corridors filled with alien soldiers. The beings were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like it had never seen sunlight. Their eyes were large and black, and they moved with the fluid grace of predators. Nicole counted at least 200 warriors in the corridors they passed through. "Impressive," she said to their escort, pretending to be amazed by the alien technology. "Your people have built something truly remarkable here. The escort didn't respond. Nicole had learned from the intelligence briefings that Zephyrians didn't waste words on what they considered inferior species. To them, humans were just another primitive race to be conquered and enslaved. They finally reached the command center, a massive room with a domed ceiling that showed the starfield outside. In the center of the room stood Supreme Commander Veltar, the leader of the invasion force. He was even taller than the other aliens, and his eyes seemed to look right through Nicole as if she wasn't worth his attention. So, Veltar said in his cold, mechanical voice, "Humans have decided to be reasonable. You wish to discuss the terms of your surrender?" Nicole bowed slightly, playing the part of a defeated diplomat. "We hope that we can find a way for both our peoples to coexist peacefully. Perhaps there is a solution that doesn't require the destruction of our world." Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your world will not be destroyed. It will be transformed. Your species will be relocated to serve our needs. Those who are useful will be kept alive. Those who are not will be eliminated." While Nicole was playing her dangerous game aboard the alien flagship, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was coordinating the largest military deception in human history. In command centers around the world, thousands of soldiers were working to make it look like humanity was giving up without a fight. "Broadcasting surrender message on all frequencies," reported Sergeant Amy Burns from the communications center. "The message is going out in 53 languages, just like the aliens demanded." Steve watched the fake surrender broadcast on his monitor. The actor playing the President of Earth looked appropriately defeated and scared. The message begged the aliens for mercy and promised full cooperation with the occupation forces. It was exactly what the Zephyrians wanted to hear. "Excellent," Steve said. "Now activate the underground evacuation protocols. I want every civilian." In the deep shelters within 6 hours, round the world, families were descending into bunkers that had been built over decades. These weren't simple bomb shelters. They were entire underground cities, complete with farms, factories, and living spaces for millions of people. The aliens had no idea that beneath their feet, humanity was disappearing into a hidden world. In Chicago, factory worker Dan Wilson was leading his family through secret passages that connected to the underground network. His wife Linda carried their baby daughter, while their son Tommy held on to his father's hand. "Where are we going, Dad?" Tommy asked. "Somewhere safe," Dan replied. "Somewhere the bad guys can't find us." The underground cities had been built slowly and quietly over the past century. Every major city in the world had them, connected by tunnels that ran for thousands of miles. The aliens thought they were occupying a planet full of people. They were actually standing on top of empty shells. Meanwhile, in the hidden laboratories beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Rachel Coleman was putting the finishing touches on humanity's most secret weapon. The quantum disruption device looked like a simple metal box, but it contained technology that could tear apart the molecular bonds of alien shields. "The field generators are calibrated," she reported to her team. "When we activate these devices, the Zephyrian shields will collapse instantly. Their armor will become as useless as paper." Dr. Coleman's assistant, Professor Mark Taylor, was running final tests on the targeting systems. "The quantum signature of their shield technology is locked into our computers. We can track every alien soldier and vehicle on the planet." "Good," Rachel said. "How long until we can deploy?" 18 hours, Mark replied. "Maybe less if we skip some of the safety protocols." "Skip them," Rachel ordered. "Safety protocols won't matter if we're all dead." On the surface, the Zephyrian ground forces were setting up their occupation headquarters in the empty cities. Commander Zechtel was in charge of the New York occupation zone, and he was becoming increasingly suspicious about the lack of human resistance, the intelligence. "Reports said this species was warlike," he told his second-in-command. "They have fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. Why are they surrendering so easily?" His lieutenant, a young warrior named Mordok, checked his scanner readings. "Perhaps they understand that resistance is futile. Our technology is clearly superior to theirs." Zechtel wasn't convinced. In his experience, primitive species always fought back, even when they had no chance of winning. The fact that the humans were being so cooperative made him nervous. "Double the patrols," he ordered, "and increase scanner sweeps." Something feels wrong about this situation. But the Zephyrian scanners were designed to detect surface activity. They couldn't penetrate the specially shielded underground cities where humanity was hiding. The aliens were looking for an enemy that was right beneath their feet, but they couldn't see them. In the underground command center, Colonel Maria Santos was watching the alien movements on her tactical display. Every Zephyrian soldier was being tracked by hidden sensors that had been placed throughout the cities years ago. The aliens thought they were in control, but they were actually being watched and recorded every second. The enemy is deploying according to standard occupation protocols, she reported to General Collins. They're setting up command posts in government buildings and military bases, just like we predicted. Peter Collins nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. They're doing exactly what we want them to do. How are the weapon installations coming along? All systems are on schedule, Maria replied. The orbital platforms are ready, the ground-based weapons are charged, and the gravitational mines are active. We can spring the trap at any time, but Peter knew that timing was everything. If they moved too soon, some of the aliens might escape, and warn other worlds about humanity's true capabilities. If they waited too long, the Zephyrians might discover the deception. We wait, he decided. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they've won. Above ground, the alien occupation was proceeding smoothly. The Zephyrians had taken control of all major cities, and their fake human government was cooperating fully. Supply ships were arriving from the fleet, bringing equipment and more troops to strengthen their hold on the planet. Supreme. Commander Veltar was pleased with the progress. In his experience, most species took weeks or months to fully conquer. The humans had given up in less than a day. It was almost disappointing. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving the final surrender documents from the human leadership. They're asking for instructions on how to begin the relocation process. Excellent, Veltar replied. Begin processing the population centers. Start with the largest cities and work your way down. I want this planet fully under our control within 1 week. What the Supreme Commander didn't know was that the human leadership he was talking to didn't exist. The surrender documents were being sent from the underground command centers, and every word was designed to make the aliens believe they had one. In the hidden bunkers, millions of humans were waiting. They had food, water, and air for months. They had weapons that the aliens had never seen before. And they had something that the Zephyrians didn't understand. They had hope. The trap was almost ready to spring. Soon, the aliens would learn that they had made the biggest mistake in Galactic history. They'd come to Earth expecting to find prey, but they had found predators instead. The hunters were about to become the hunted. General Tony Mitchell looked at the clock on his command center wall. It was exactly midnight when he gave the order that would change everything. His finger hovered over the red button for just a moment, then he pressed it down.
Got him all, got him.
Execute operation. Thunder, he said into his communication device. All units, all stations. This is not a drill. Around the world, hidden weapons that had been sleeping for decades suddenly came to life. In the empty streets of New York, the ground began to crack and split. Metal platforms rose from beneath the asphalt, carrying massive weapons that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. The same thing was happening in London, Tokyo, Berlin, and every other major city on Earth. Commander Zechtel was in his temporary headquarters when the first weapon platform emerged from the ground. Just outside his window, the building shook as the massive device broke through the street, sending chunks of concrete flying in all directions. What is happening? He shouted to his communications officer. Report. But before the officer could answer, the weapon fired. A beam of pure energy struck the Zephyrian command post, and the building's shields flared to life. The aliens had been confident that their shields could stop any human weapon, but this beam was different. It was cutting through their defenses like a hot knife through butter. Shields are failing, the officer screamed. Energy output is beyond our measurement systems. Zechtel grabbed his weapon and ran for the exit. Behind him, the building exploded. In a ball of fire and light, the command post that had been built to withstand nuclear weapons was destroyed in seconds by a single shot from a human weapon. Similar scenes were playing out all over the planet. The aliens had spread their forces throughout the cities, thinking they were in control. Now they found themselves trapped in a maze of streets where every corner held a new weapon designed to kill them in the hidden command center. Captain Derek Jensen was watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "We're working perfectly, but they were just the beginning." The real surprise was about to come from space. "Lunar Base Command, this is Earth Control," Derek said into his headset. "You are cleared for Phase 2 operations." On the far side of the moon, Colonel Sandra Murphy pressed her own set of buttons. The lunar surface began to open up like a flower, revealing weapons that had been hidden there for 50 years. Railgun. Batteries that could fire projectiles at nearly the speed of light rose from their concealment and turned toward the alien fleet. "Target acquired," Sandra reported. "Firing solution locked." The railguns fired in perfect synchronization. Solid metal projectiles, each one the size of a telephone pole, streaked across space toward the Zephyrian ships. The aliens had shields that could stop energy weapons, but they had never encountered anything like this. Supreme Commander Veltar was on the bridge of his flagship. When the first projectile struck, impact sent shock waves through the entire ship, and alarms began sounding throughout the vessel. "Damage report," Veltar demanded. "Forward shields are down," his tactical officer reported. "We're showing hull breaches on decks 5 through 7. How is this possible? These projectiles have no energy signature." Veltar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans were firing solid metal at his ships, and somehow it was working. His shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not physical objects moving at incredible speeds. "Return fire," he ordered. "Destroy their launch platforms." But when the Zephyrian weapons fired at the moon, they hit nothing but empty rock. The human weapons were hidden in underground bunkers that could survive a direct nuclear strike. Aliens were shooting at shadows while the real weapons continued to fire. Back on Earth, Commander Katie Williams was leading her squadron of fighter ships out of their hidden base inside an asteroid. The pilots had been waiting in their ships for hours, breathing recycled air and checking their weapon systems over and over again. "Gold Squadron, this is Gold Leader," Katie said into her radio. "We are go for launch. Remember, they're shields. Can't stop our gravitational disruptors. Hit them hard and hit them fast." The human fighters emerged from asteroids throughout the solar system. They had been hidden there for decades, waiting for this moment. The ships were small and fast. The gravitational disruptors could create tiny black holes that would tear apart any ship they hit. The technology was dangerous and unstable, but it was also incredibly effective. "Target acquired," Katie reported as she lined up her shot on. A Zephyrian destroyer, firing gravitational disruptor. The weapon fired with a sound like thunder. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the alien ship, and then the vessel simply collapsed in on itself. The Zephyrian destroyer was crushed by its own gravity, leaving nothing but a cloud of debris. "Direct hit," Katie shouted. One enemy ship destroyed. All around the solar system, human fighters were emerging from their hiding places and attacking the alien fleet. The Zephyrians had come with 3,000 ships. They were spread out and unprepared for this kind of coordinated assault in the research labs on Earth. Dr. Helen Morris was activating the most secret weapon of all. The psionic amplifiers had been built based on studies of human telepathic abilities, but they had never been tested in actual combat. "Activating psionic field," Helen reported to her team. "All personnel, prepare for mental interface." Came online with a low humming sound. Around the world, humans with telepathic abilities were connecting their minds to the devices, creating a mental network that covered the entire planet. The Zephyrians had never encountered anything like this. On the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Veltar suddenly screamed in pain. His mind was being flooded with images and emotions from thousands of human telepaths. The mental assault was so intense that he fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Sir?" His communications officer shouted. "What's wrong?" Veltar couldn't answer. The human telepaths were showing him images of every world his species had conquered, every innocent being they had killed. The guilt and horror was overwhelming. It was being amplified by the psionic devices until it felt like his mind was being torn apart. The same thing was happening too. Zephyrian commanders throughout the fleet. The aliens were a telepathic species, which made them extremely sensitive to mental attacks. The humans had turned their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Mental interference detected, the science officer reported. The humans are using some kind of psychic weapon against us. Commander Zechtel was trying to reorganize his ground forces when the psionic attack hit him. The mental assault was so powerful that he couldn't think straight. His orders became confused and contradictory, and his soldiers didn't know what to do. Fall back to the landing zones, he ordered. No, wait, advance to the government buildings. Secure that, ... What was I saying? The Zephyrian ground forces were in chaos. Their commanders were being driven insane by the psionic weapons. The human weapon platforms were destroying their equipment faster than they could replace it in the underground command center. General Collins was watching the battle with calm satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to fight a primitive species with crude weapons. Instead, they were facing technology that was centuries ahead of their own. Sir Colonel Santos reported enemy casualties are at 60% and climbing. Their command structure is collapsing. Peter nodded. Good, but we're not done yet. Activate the quantum cascade weapons. I want to make sure none of them escape to warn their home worlds. Dr. Coleman's team had been waiting for this moment. The quantum cascade weapons were the most powerful devices humanity had ever built. They could create chain reactions that would destroy entire fleets in seconds. Quantum cascade ready for deployment, Rachel reported. Targeting enemy flagship. The weapon fired with a flash of light that could be seen from Earth. The energy beam struck the alien flagship and began to spread to other ships in the fleet. The quantum cascade created a domino effect, with each destroyed ship triggering the destruction of the next. Supreme May Commander Veltar watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by weapons he couldn't understand. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by a species he had thought was primitive. Ow, he whispered as his flagship began to break apart around him. How is this possible? Live to understand it. Humanity had spent a century preparing for this war. It studied every crashed alien ship, reverse-engineered every piece of technology, and built weapons specifically designed to destroy the Zephyrian fleet. The hunters had become the hunted, and the hunt was almost over. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner watched the alien fleet trying to escape from his position on the orbital command station. The Zephyrians had finally realized they were losing the battle, and now they were attempting to retreat to hyperspace. But Alex had been waiting for this moment. Gravitational mines activated. He reported to Earth Command. The enemy fleet is trapped. Mines had been placed throughout the solar system over the past 50 years. They were invisible to alien sensors, floating in space like sleeping giants. When Alex activated them, they created gravitational fields so powerful that no ship could escape. The Zephyrian vessels found themselves pulled toward the mines like metal to a magnet. Their engines screamed as they tried to break free, but the artificial gravity was too strong. Ships that had traveled between stars for thousands of years were now trapped in Earth's solar system. This is impossible. Supreme Commander Veltar shouted on his damaged bridge. No species has this technology. The science officer was frantically working at his controls, trying to find a way to escape. The gravitational fields are artificial, sir. They're using some kind of device to create them. Veltar couldn't believe what he was hearing. His species had been traveling space for millennia, and they had never encountered technology like this. The humans were supposed to be primitive, but they were fighting with weapons that seemed to come from the future. On Earth, Chief Engineer Sandra Murphy was monitoring the energy systems that powered the human weapons. The devices were drawing massive amounts of power, but the energy absorption grids were working perfectly. The alien plasma fire is being converted to power our weapons, she reported with a smile.
Ow.
Every time they shoot at us, they're making us stronger. This was perhaps the most ingenious part of the human defense plan. The energy absorption grids had been built into every major city on Earth. When the aliens fired their plasma weapons, the grids captured the energy and fed it directly into the human weapon systems. Major Chris Henderson was leading his ground forces out of the underground cities. The time for hiding was over. Now it was time to show the aliens what human soldiers could do in open combat. All units, advance to surface positions, Chris ordered. The enemy is trapped and confused. This is our chance to finish them. The human soldiers emerged from hidden tunnels and bunkers throughout the cities. They were wearing armor that looked like it had been designed by aliens. It was actually human technology that had been reverse-engineered from crashed UFOs. Private Kevin Moore was part of Chris's assault team. He had been training for this moment his whole life, but he had never expected to fight aliens in the streets of his own city. The enemy is retreating toward the landing zones, Kevin reported into his radio. They're trying to get back to their ships. Don't let them, Chris replied. We need prisoners for interrogation. They use the stun weapons when possible. The human soldiers advanced through the streets, hunting down the surviving Zephyrians. The aliens were powerful fighters, but they were confused and demoralized. Their commanders were being driven insane by the psionic weapons. Their equipment was failing all around them in the command center. Dr. Jennifer Torres was revealing the biggest secret of all. She had been studying alien technology for 38 years, ever since the first crashed ship had been recovered in the Nevada desert. The truth is, she told General Collins, we've had their technology for decades. Every weapon they brought to Earth we've already analyzed and improved upon. Peter Collins nodded. Show me the comparison data. Jennifer brought up a holographic display that showed Zephyrian weapons alongside their human counterparts. In every case, the human versions were more powerful and more efficient. Their plasma weapons are based on magnetic confinement technology, Jennifer explained. We've been using the same principles for 50 years, but we've made them 10 times. More effective? What about their shields? Peter asked. Electromagnetic barriers with quantum reinforcement, Jennifer replied. We cracked the technology in 1987. Our shields are actually stronger than theirs. The revelation was stunning. The aliens had come to Earth thinking they had superior technology, but humans had been using their own inventions against them. Every advantage the Zephyrians thought they had was actually an advantage for humanity, Commander. Zechtel was trapped in a building surrounded by human soldiers. His platoon had been cut off from the main force, and they were running out of ammunition. The humans were calling for his surrender, but he couldn't understand how this had happened. Sir, one of his soldiers said, their weapons are too advanced. How did a primitive species develop technology like this? Zechtel didn't have an answer. Humans were using weapons that his own scientists couldn't understand. Energy beams that cut through their best armor, gravity weapons that crushed their ships, and mental attacks that drove his commanders insane. We surrender, he finally said into his communication device. We cannot fight weapons like these. In the hidden laboratory, Dr. Rachel Coleman was putting the final touches on the most devastating weapon in the human arsenal, the planetary defense matrix. Was a network of satellites that could focus the energy from an entire planet into a single beam. The matrix is fully operational, she reported. We can focus all the energy from the alien bombardment into one concentrated attack. General Collins smiled grimly. Target their command ship. Let's end this once and for all. The satellites moved into position above Earth, forming a perfect geometric pattern. When the aliens fired their weapons at the planet, the energy was captured and redirected toward the Zephyrian flagship. Supreme Commander Veltar saw the beam coming toward his ship and knew that death was approaching. The energy beam was so powerful that it lit up the entire solar system. His shields lasted for exactly 3 seconds before they were overwhelmed. All hands, prepare for impact. He shouted, but it was too late. The flagship exploded in a ball. A fire that could be seen from Mars. The ship that had led the conquest of 47 worlds was destroyed by its own weapons, turned against it by human ingenuity. The destruction of the flagship was the signal for the final phase of the human counterattack. All around the solar system, human forces were moving in for the kill. The alien fleet was trapped. Their commanders were dead or insane. Their technology had been turned against them. Colonel Ryan Kelly was coordinating the mop-up operations from his command post. The battle was essentially over, but there were still pockets of alien resistance to be eliminated. Ground forces report 90% enemy casualties, he told General Collins. The remaining aliens are requesting terms for surrender. No terms, Peter replied coldly. This species has destroyed 47 worlds. They came here to annihilate us. We're going to return the favor. Dr. Watson was analyzing the final battle data when she made a disturbing discovery. The Zephyrian fleet had been carrying something more than just weapons and soldiers. She reported to the command center. We're detecting colonial equipment on the alien ships. Population processors, genetic modification devices, slave conditioning systems. They weren't just here to conquer us. They were here to turn us into a slave species. The revelation made the human victory even more satisfying. The aliens had come to Earth with the intention of enslaving humanity, but they had found something they'd never expected. They had found a species that refused to be conquered. Captain Davis was monitoring the communications channels when the last alien transmission came through. It was a distress signal being sent toward Zephyrian space. "This is Commander Mordok." To Zephyrian Command, the message said. "The invasion of Earth has failed. Repeat, the invasion has failed. The humans have technology beyond our understanding. Do not send reinforcements. Do not come to this system. The humans are not what we thought they were." Davis smiled as she recorded the message. "Let the aliens spread the word about what happened here. Let them tell the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. The battle for Earth was almost over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning." Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching as the last pieces of the alien fleet drifted through space like broken toys. The battle was over, and humanity had won. But the victory had come at a cost that the aliens could never have imagined. Final casualty report. Jake ordered. Captain Lisa Davis looked at her screen with a mixture of satisfaction and horror. Enemy casualties, 100%. The entire Zephyrian invasion force has been destroyed. No survivors. Jake nodded slowly. In 72 hours, humanity had completely annihilated a species that had conquered nearly 50 worlds. Zephyrians had come to Earth expecting to add another planet to their empire. Instead, they had found their own extinction. "What about our losses?" Jake asked. "Minimal," Lisa replied. 12 soldiers wounded, no deaths. Property damage is mostly limited to the fake buildings we let them destroy." The numbers were almost impossible to believe. An entire alien civilization had been wiped out, and humanity had barely suffered a scratch. It was the most one-sided victory in the history of warfare. On the surface of Earth, Major Chris Henderson was walking through the streets of New York, surveying the aftermath of the battle. The city looked like a war zone, but it was all carefully planned destruction. The buildings that had been damaged were empty shells, designed to make the aliens think they were winning. "Cleanup crews are already working," his assistant reported. "The weapon platforms are retracting back into their underground positions. In a week, you won't be able to tell there was ever a battle here." Chris looked at the bodies of alien soldiers scattered throughout the streets. Each one had been a living being with thoughts and feelings, but they had come to Earth with the intention of enslaving humanity. Their deaths were necessary, but Chris couldn't help feeling some regret. "Make sure the bodies are collected for study," he ordered. "Dr. Watson will want to examine their biology." In the underground command center, General Peter Collins was receiving reports from around the world. The cleanup operation was proceeding smoothly, but the implications of what had happened were staggering. "The alien technology we captured is incredible," Dr. Jennifer Torres reported. "Their ships alone contain enough advanced materials to boost our space program by 200 years. Peter nodded. "What about their homeworlds? Do we have their location?" "We do," Jennifer replied. "Navigation computers on their ships contained complete star charts. We know the location of every Zephyrian colony." The information was both exciting and terrifying. Humanity now had access to the locations of 47 alien worlds, each one filled with advanced technology and resources. But they also had the knowledge that there were other species out there. Some of them might be even more dangerous than the Zephyrians. Colonel Ryan Kelly was analyzing the strategic implications of the victory. The aliens had been confident that their superior technology would guarantee an easy win. Instead, they had walked into a trap that had been prepared for over a century. "The key was patience," he explained to his staff. "We could have revealed our capabilities decades ago, but we waited until the right moment. We let them think they had the advantage until it was too late. The strategy had worked perfectly. The Zephyrians had spread their forces throughout the solar system, making themselves vulnerable to coordinated attacks. They had never suspected that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario. Dr. Amy Watson was in her laboratory, studying the remains of alien technology. The devices were incredibly advanced, but they were also strangely familiar. Many of the principles were the same ones that human scientists had been working on for decades. It's almost like they stopped innovating, she told her assistant. Their technology is advanced, but it's also old. They've been using the same designs for thousands of years. This was perhaps the most important discovery of all. Zephyrians had become complacent after centuries of easy victories. They had stopped developing new weapons and tactics because they thought they didn't need them. Meanwhile, humanity had been constantly improving and adapting. Captain Nicole Brooks was back on Earth, writing her report about the diplomatic mission to the alien flagship. The experience had been terrifying, but it had also provided valuable intelligence about the enemy's psychology. They saw us as insects, she wrote. They couldn't imagine that a species they considered primitive could pose any threat to them. Their arrogance was their greatest weakness. The aliens had made the classic mistake of underestimating their enemy. They had judged humanity by their external appearance and technology, never realizing that humans had been hiding their true capabilities. In the hidden research facilities, Dr. Helen Morris was analyzing the data from the psionic weapons. The mental attacks had been devastatingly effective against the telepathic aliens. But they had also revealed something important about human potential. We're more psychically active than we realized, she reported to her team. The psionic amplifiers didn't just boost our natural abilities, they revealed abilities we never knew we had. The discovery opened up new possibilities for human development. If humans could develop their psychic abilities, they might be able to communicate across vast distances or even influence alien minds directly. Commander Katie Williams was in the debriefing room, describing her experience leading the fighter squadron. The gravitational disruptors had worked perfectly, but the real victory had been the coordinated nature of the human response. Every part of the plan worked together, she explained. The ground weapons, the space weapons, the psionic attacks, the gravitational mines. It was like a symphony of destruction. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could coordinate attacks on such a massive scale. They were used to fighting primitive species that relied on simple tactics and crude weapons. Humanity's sophisticated battle plan had caught them completely off guard. Dr. Rachel Coleman was already working on the next generation of human. The quantum cascade technology had proven incredibly effective, but she believed it could be improved even further. We can create weapons that destroy entire star systems, she told General Collins. If another species tries to threaten Earth, we can eliminate them before they even get close. The technology was almost too powerful to comprehend. Humanity had gone from being a single planet species to having the capability to destroy entire civilizations. The responsibility was enormous. As the sun set over Earth, Admiral Morrison was preparing to send a message to the galaxy. The alien fleet had been broadcasting their attack on Earth to other species, and now it was time for humanity to respond. People of the galaxy, he began, speaking into the communication device that would broadcast his words to every inhabited world within 50 light years. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the planet Earth. Earlier today, the Zephyrian Collective sent a fleet to conquer our world. They demanded that we surrender our planet for their use. They threatened to destroy anyone who resisted. Looking out at the debris field that had once been the alien fleet, the Zephyrian Collective no longer exists. Their entire invasion force has been destroyed. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon they brought to our system has been annihilated. The message was being transmitted on frequencies that every spacefaring species could receive. Within hours, it would be heard on thousands of worlds throughout the galaxy. We did not seek this war, Jake continued, but we finished it. The Zephyrians came to Earth expecting to find a primitive species that would submit to their will. Instead, they found a species that had been preparing for this moment for over a century. The Admiral's voice became harder, more threatening. Let this be a warning to any other species that might consider humanity as potential prey. We are not the helpless primitives you think we are. We're not victims waiting to be conquered. We are predators who have been pretending to be prey. Jake looked directly into the camera, his eyes filled with cold determination. The Zephyrians came to Earth for colonization. We gave them annihilation. Any species that threatens our world will receive the same treatment. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The message ended and Jake turned away from the camera. The age of human expansion into the galaxy was about to begin, and every species in the universe would soon learn that Earth was not a world to be conquered. It was a world to be feared. The hunters had learned too late that they had chosen the wrong prey, and now the prey was ready to become the hunter.